Hello and welcome back to the Talking Wolves Transfer Podcast, the show that looks at the finer details of all the Wolves news transfer rumours. I'm delighted to say I'm joined alongside the main man himself, Dave Azzopardi. Dave, how you keeping, mate?
Very well, thank you, mate. Very well. Got my finally got my season ticket reward today. It's taken a while, but I'm now officially part of the pack, Matt, just before the second home game. So definitely take my scarf with me on Sunday.
You know how people say on Twitter, like YouTuber pack luck or Dave gets everything because he's an influencer. Well, I think this just goes to show that that's not the case, because I got one of those boxes and you just got a measly letter, didn't you, to say
I got a letter to apologise. Yeah, it's finally here now. My little card holder and my scarf. Happy days. Ready for the winter.
It's a nice
we haven't got any football.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a nice little touch, but Udar reckons we should have the £15,000 they spent on the boxes should have been gone on a new striker. But you can't please everyone, mate. We got loads to talk about today. There's been absolutely loads of rumours since the last one. Some are incomings, some are outgoings. But I can't wait to sink my teeth into it. But before we start, mate, our friends over at Football Prizes have a new prize live on their site, and this week's it's a signed 2021 Wolves home shirt. Now, entry just costs £3.95, and for the whole of August, if you use code Talking Wolves, you'll get 10% off during this month. Competition ends at 7:30 on Wednesday. To head to footballprizes.co.uk or click the link in the description down below to find out more. And that's a Wolves 2021 signed home shirt. It's got the likes of Semedo, Jimenez, Neves on there, so decent little prize there. Dave, we know we have on this podcast, we have a segment dedicated to strikers over 195 centimetres. And I'm proud to announce that it looks like Wolves may be close to signing a striker over 6'5" in the shape of Sasa Kalajdzic. It was reported late last week that Wolves have a firm interest in the Stuttgart striker, but no bid had been made. Stuttgart valued a gigantic 6'7" striker at €25 million, but it's understood a bid of €20 million could be enough to bring in Kalajdzic. Dave, what do you think of this one? Do you think it could be a go? Are you excited?
Yeah. Well, due to his height, I'm excited, Matt. But no, I think so. There's definitely obviously interest. There's definitely interest in there from Wolves, and the director of Leverkusen, who's he played for? Stuttgart. The director of Stuttgart's pretty much, said that there's interest in there from Wolves. Got a decent record. I know there's been a couple of injuries recently. One last year, which restricted his game time a little bit, which just sort of restricted his game time and slowed him down a little bit. But his actual goal to game and the goal contribution to game ratio has been very impressive in Germany. And I think it's no secret that Wolves want to go with this taller, bigger striker approach. So this one, it does make sense, really.
It does, and we know that Bruno hasn't publicly come out and said this is a kind of striker that we want. But the amount of links that we've been linked with gigantic strikers, I don't think it's any coincidence that Wolves have put the feelers out, and this is the type of profile they want. It's understood if a deal could be thrashed out that personal terms wouldn't be an issue, and the player is extremely keen to join. He's only got a year left on his contract, so I think it kind of symbolises that the type of player that we get in, if they're trying to hold out for €25 million, because that's a lot of money for someone with a year left on their deal. I spoke to recruitment analyst Dan Butler about this, Dave, who's been on Talking Wolves before, and he said he's got a bit of everything. He's quick once he gets going. He's not afraid to run in behind. And I said, what kind of level would you put him at? And he said he could play for a top 8 Premier League club easily. So it's an exciting signing, really, isn't it, Dave? If it happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just gives us an approach and something that we've not seen at the club for a long, long time. I think you've seen it clearly in the first few games of the season, even against Preston in the Cup, where, we know as a club we could get a lot of joy down the wide areas. We've got very talented wide players. But one of the reasons I don't think, we're getting the right opportunities is because we haven't got the right height in the area. Raul isn't small. I would say he has got a bit of height, and pre-injury Raul Jimenez was probably one of the best headers of the ball in the Premier League as a forward option. But without him in the team, you can't be whipping balls into Neto, Guedes, Podence, Morgan Gibbs-White when he was at the club. So I think this is going to offer something completely different and offer the wingers actually a different alternative to whip that ball in the area and know there's someone in and around the penalty spot that's going to, give the defenders a tough time. So I'm intrigued by this. I think, you're right. A year left on his deal. The fact that they're holding out for still 20 million euros plus, says something. But the longer this window goes on and the closer it gets to the deadline with them not agreeing a contract with him, the better chance Wolves have got to, sort out a better deal, because they won't be wanting to go into January knowing that Kalajdzic has only got 6 months left on his contract. So, yeah, intrigued with this one. I know it's been said that Wolves want to try and get it done as soon as they can, but it's going to be something that goes close to the deadline next week, I think.
Yeah, the likes of Bayern Munich and Manchester United have both been linked with him. I'm not sure how strong those links are, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Wolves desperate to bring in another striker. I know that Raul Jimenez got on the score sheet this week against Preston in the cup, but the club are desperate to bring in someone to challenge Jimenez for that number 9 spot. So I think with this one, it'll definitely be watch this space. Moving on now, Dave, to another rumour that I think was released yesterday by Football Ghana, is that Wolves are set to open talks with representatives of Ajax for Ghanaian international Mohammed Kudus. Quite a tenacious midfielder, said to be attracting interest from Everton. His Ajax career, even though he's only 22, has been plagued by injuries, but he's still said to be highly thought of in Amsterdam. Is this a player you know a lot about, Dave?
If I'm honest, not a huge amount. It's a name that I'm obviously aware of, but a lot of people seem to get excited about this one when he was linked yesterday. I don't watch a huge amount of Dutch football, but I think he's a player that, by the looks of things on FIFA and Football Manager, is probably pretty highly rated by the reaction of many people. But yeah, like you said, he's still only young. He's been pretty, in the Ghana setup for the last few years and got a good amount of appearances already for them. But he's yet to start a game for Ajax this season. He's come off the bench for 3 matches already this year. But I think he's going to offer, he's more of a number 10 from what I found out. Could play centrally as well. And I think this would offer a different option. I think this is what Wolves probably need a little bit more of. Whether they sign him and they're happy to let someone like Luke Kundal go out on loan, which obviously I know is probably in the works, but you bring Kudus in as a rotation or as a backup option, and then he still gives you an option if you're playing a 4-2-3-1 to play as a number 10, because I think we've got Guedes, we've got Podence that could play as a number 10, but out of our other midfielders, Neves, Moutinho, Donk and Nunes, I don't think Nunes possibly, but I don't think any of those 4 are natural or number 10s. So I think having somebody who's got the option to come off the bench and able to play there is something that the club should be open to.
Yeah, I mean he's quite small, isn't he? Looks like he's got a low centre of gravity, a bit similar to Podence, but seems really explosive off the mark. So someone who could be quite useful for us in transition. But because it's come from Football Ghana, it's similar when Paul Onanachu links come out of Nigeria. You've almost got to take them from a pinch of salt, haven't you? When they come from native countries. When it's from
native countries, you hit the nail on the head with the Onanachu one. Kudus has been heavily linked with Everton as well, and apparently they were in advanced talks last week. So when your agent is, talking to papers or whatever and trying to tout another move, it's almost a speed, either make other clubs aware of his availability or speed up the process of another transfer. So I'm not saying that Wolves aren't interested, because they may well be interested, but when there's stories like this from, I'm not going to say Football Ghana has probably got some reliability, but I'm not going to say they're highly reputable. I would probably wait for other outlets to jump on this before you get too excited.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's one that's probably gonna go through. But it's interesting that we are being linked with these kind of players. It would be a reinforcement that we could do with, especially if Dendoncker is to leave, which we'll come on to in a minute. But another link that emerged today, Dave, and completely left field, and one that I cannot see happening for the life of me, is that Wolves are reportedly monitoring Brighton defender Adam Webster, who's also a target for Chelsea. This was according to journalist Ben Jacobs. It's thought that Brighton value him at around £40 million, and they're not in a position to sell. Wolves have also brought in Nathan Collins this window. Where has this link come from, Dave? As a journalist looked at, oh well, Cody's left Wolves, so they must need a centre half. Do you think it just could be as simple as that?
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. He's a good footballer, Adam Webster, and you're not going to be crap if you link to him and move to Chelsea. So yeah, it's a strange one, really. I don't think Wolves are in a desperate need. If Adam Webster were to leave Brighton, like you said, it would, one, take a pretty sizable fee, but two, he would only leave Brighton if he's insured first team football. If we were still playing a back three, I'd say yes, sounds a good option to bring in, but the fact that we're playing a back two, Kilman and Collins, so far, in my opinion, have been fairly good. I can't see there being much truth in this at all. I know there's probably talk of him being as a replacement for Willy Bolly, who's very likely to leave the club. Bruno Lage pretty much didn't rule it out on Tuesday night. Okay, fair enough. But Willy Bolly, you're probably only get 3 or 4 million for. So you're not going to sign Adam Webster for a similar amount of money. So I just can't. Yes, we might be monitoring him, and yes, we might see him as as a future signing. But this window, really, really can't see it.
The only way I could see Webster coming in, and if I'm totally honest, it's a bit of a sideward step at the minute because Brighton, look a real team who are on
really good so far.
Yeah, under Graham Potter, play some good stuff and actually converting that up the other end. Is if, for example, Kilman was to leave Wolves and go to Chelsea, and they would bring him because he's quite similar in terms of his play. He's really good at progressing the ball out from the back.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only way because a Kilman sale would probably raise similar funds, 35 million pound.
Yeah.
And it could also be that Webster's representatives are saying this to try and secure a more lucrative contract at Brighton. You never know, and it just feels like a really strange link, doesn't it, Dave? It's my personal opinion is that the journalist has looked at, okay, well, who else needs a centre half? Cody's gone. That's it's been one of the big outgoings for the mainstream media.
Yeah,
we'll link him with him, so I can't see it happening.
No, and sorry to jump the gun a little bit, Matt. I'll link it with the next player that we were going to talk about, which was Victor Nelsson as well. So that was according to Mail Sport this morning. Victor Nelsson, who plays a Galatasaray Danish centre back, as a replacement for Willy Bolly. Now the exact same thing with this, he's playing well at Galatasaray at the moment, and he's rated at about £20 million. Are Wolves going to spend 20 million plus on a player who's not certain to start, and two, is a replacement for someone you're only getting a couple of million or a few million for? So for me, both of those stories don't make sense unless either Adam Webster, I think, is much less likely, either are sort of alone with an option or obligation to buy.
Yeah, it's a real strange one. I thought that the Victor Nelsson deal, which you've just mentioned there, which came out, news broke today, or first thing this morning, wasn't it? Yeah. I woke up and saw that you'd already posted it out, but Dave's on the ball. He just can't help himself. up early, fabricating transfer rumours. Yeah, when I first saw that, and Galatasaray, you think, okay, maybe if Bolly does go, he's someone who can come in for a similar fee, because these Turkish clubs aren't known for selling their talent at a really top price. But to see that the fee this afternoon, which has been touted around about 20 to 25 million euros, I just can't see Wolves spending that on another defender. Can you?
No. And like we've already said, we've already mentioned Nathan Collins is a new signing. Kilman's doing really well. Can't see either of those two moving on. The only person that's looking likely to move on is Willy Bolly. Mosquera and Totti still might go out on loan, don't know. But Willy Bolly, but like we say, he's only got 12 months left on his contract. Very little game time over the past couple of years. So you're only going to get 3 or 4 million for him, I think. So to have either of these, unless it's a loan, which I think is unlikely, to have either of these as a direct replacement, I'd be surprised at. Well, I'm intrigued to see if Willy Bolly goes, which seems likely, what sort of player Wolves would get in. Whether it would be a loan, I don't know, a loan from one of the big clubs, for some of their younger defenders to get closer to some first team action, or whether Wolves are maybe able to sign, some young up and coming defender from Grasshoppers or Portugal, like they tend to do.
Yeah, yeah. I think at the minute there's enough cover. I think you need at least 2 centre halves to cover Kilman and Collins, and if it's led to believe that we may switch to a back five in particular games, then you maybe need one more. But you mentioned there about Willy Bolly, mate. Forest bid £1 million for the defender who's out of contract. I believe he's 32. If Wolves are to let him go, what sort of fee would you want?
Like I've mentioned, I would be aiming. I think tops you're going to get 5. I think if you can get 4 or 5 million for him, I think you've done well. But that's still he's a player. I know he's been disappointed with injuries in recent years. I think we spoke about it on the podcast a little bit. He'd been sort of really held back by long COVID, unfortunately. But he's still a Premier League quality he was a Premier League quality defender a couple of years ago, and he's got the experience at this level. So I think that is worth a few million in itself, to be honest. So if we can get 4 or 5 million, I think you've done well. Yeah. And we've got our money's worth out of him as well, for sure. Was it 10 million quid we spent? Yeah, more than enough.
Yeah, I feel like it's a week left of the transfer deadline, and we will be doing a live stream before the deadline on the Thursday. I feel like you're going to be ferociously tweeting the next 7 days, mate. I feel like it's going to really hot up. Is that how you feel as well?
Yeah, well, there's business still to be done. We still got 2 or 3 rumours to talk about, and Wolves have still got probably, in my opinion, at least 2 more players to bring in. And from right now, yes, Kalajdzic looks the most likely, but there's whispers right now. We spoke about it quickly of players such as Maxi Gomez, but it's very early days on that at the moment. And we've seen with all the other transfers, Wolves have done it. Things can change within 2 or 3 days, like 24, 48 hours. Things can just move. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm sure there's going to be lots of crazy players linked to and from Molineux.
Well, let's just touch on Maxi Gomez, because there's no concrete links to Wolves as of yet. But there's reports coming out of Valencia that Mendes is looking. They've appointed Mendes to try and shift Maxi Gomez. It's almost like for like when the Geddes rumours broke. It was an unnamed club, as agreed, and then within a few hours we found out it was Geddes. He's a player who played up top with him in a 4-4-2 last season for Valencia and struck a real partnership. Big centre forward, good at holding the ball up. Do you think it could be one that Wolves are looking at? I know we've been linked with him previously.
Yeah, we've been linked with him quite heavily before as well. And Valencia are obviously going in a slightly different direction. I think by the stories that I very quickly read, they're looking at potentially trying to bring in Cavani, which would mean they'd have to move somebody on. So this could be something that falls into Wolves' hands quite nicely, because Valencia, I think, they're desperate to move him on, could be open to a loan with an option or obligation to buy, which would suit Wolves so well. I think it probably happens a lot more than we realise in football, where players come in and either recommend or are spoken about a player that they've played with before. So it wouldn't be surprising that Wolves have looked at the partnership that Guedes and Maxi Gomez would have had previously and thought, well, maybe we can try and translate this into the Premier League. So if there's an offer there for Wolves, they're going to do it. And I think if there's an offer there where Wolves, or an opportunity where Wolves can bring Maxi Gomez in on loan with an option to buy, rather than having to have a tug of war or a bidding war with Stuttgart, with Kalajdzic, then I think they're going to probably opt for Maxi Gomez. But obviously we don't know too much more about that at the moment. But like we said, in the next 24 hours or so, it'll probably be a little bit clearer.
Yeah, and he's not the same mould as someone like Kalajdzic. He's a bit short. I think he's about 6'1", big stocky chap. 2 years left on his deal. Uruguayan, 26 years of age. So
it's probably more similar to Jimenez, I would say. Yeah, probably not as
better in the air, I'd say though. He's
but probably maybe not as mobile in terms of driving the ball forward as Jimenez. But so it just depends. Maybe, I hate to say it, more of a possibly Willian Jose type player.
Oh boy.
But yeah, but is that different enough to Jimenez? Which obviously it's something Wolves are looking at.
Yeah, he's for me, he's like a similar mould of like Solomon Rondon of yesteryear, not the Rondon that Everton have got more than Newcastle. So
I was desperate to bring Rondon in when we were linked to him, absolutely.
I know, he's an absolute car horse at Everton. The fans hate him, don't they? But I think with that one, maybe watch this space. So moving on to outgoings now, Dave, and there's 3 players here. Some may come as a surprise, but the most surprising one for me was the news that broke today, and not because of the player, but more because of the club he's been linked with, and that's that PSG have reportedly identified Wolves' Leander Dendoncker as a potential signing before the end of the transfer window. That's according to Mediafoot in France. Now, it's the same outlet that broke the news that Wolves were interested in Monaco centre forward Wissam Ben Yedder. PSG, I know. So take it with a pinch of salt. Apparently, PSG are struggling to sign their main targets and still want a player who can play in a back three and midfield. Dave, can you see this one happening? Dendoncker seems to be cast aside a little bit at Wolves. I know that Bruno Lage still rates him, but with the signing of Nunge, it looks like his minutes could be numbered even more so.
Yeah, I've not disliked his performances. The first couple of games of the season where he's played, I know he got a little bit of stick after the Spurs game. A lot of people thought he had a negative effect on the match. Missed a decent opportunity as well. But it's a weird one because PSG, I don't think you can ever predict their transfer business anyway. Because yes, they'll sign a couple of top players, but there's always players. No disrespect to Dendoncker, always players like this that always end up joining them. I think versatility is key. Wolves, they're playing a back. I'm not actually sure how they've been playing, but that obviously the article suggests, they are playing a back three under the new manager, Galtier, I think it is. And I think they just want a squad player to offer that rotation. They can't get Bernardo Silva over the line. I know they were battling Barcelona a little bit for that. There are one or two other players they're trying to get in. And I think just for this season, really, they're after somebody that can offer that bit of versatility, a ball winner in the middle. And someone that can slot into the back three. I know people laugh at this, but I actually think he'd be, with slightly better players around him. I think he'd do all right in the French league, to be honest. I think he'd be absolutely fine there. He's in the last year of his contract as well, so Wolves have got to be cautious of that. So his stock isn't going to be sky high right now. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. If Dendoncker, he's not a guaranteed starter, especially since Nunez has come in. I think he'd be very open to a move away. I think he won't believe his luck if he's moving away and joining PSG. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happens with Dendoncker because he's had a couple of decent sized clubs linked with him, and I think his versatility is key for that.
Yeah, and he's out of contract at the end of the year, but the club do hold an option of an extra year. So
okay,
it could be that think of it as 2 years. But yeah, looking at PSG lining up this season, I've either gone with a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-1-2. So. His versatility could be key there, but I think, he gets into some good positions for Wolves, but it's what he does once he's in those positions. But
yeah,
you're talking about a player who plays most international games for one of the best international teams in the world, but primarily as a screening midfielder, as a defensive midfielder. So it's not really any shock when he gets into those positions that he fluffs his chances, but. With the size of PSG, you know that the capital that they've got at their disposal, Dave, Leander Dendoncker, 2 years left on his deal. How many millions are you saying?
20 maybe.
Okay. I think that's fair. 20 to 25, I was thinking.
25 to 25. And I think that's a very good deal for Wolves to accept. But it's just annoying, Matt, because I think these deals are almost coming a bit too late for Wolves because I think it just makes you deal. It obviously means you've got to sign more players, and then clubs know you're desperate to sign players, so you're paying the premium then. So who knows? We might be able to squeeze a little bit more out of PSG if they're desperate. But yeah, but then you risk upsetting the player if he knows these type of clubs are interested in him.
I mean,
so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there could be swap deals involved here. Because they've got a lot of players. Danilo Pereira. Yeah, that's who I was thinking. Exactly who I was thinking. Danilo Pereira. That's exactly who I was thinking. They need to get players off the books. I would have said Idrissa Gueye, but he's been a bit of a naughty boy in the past six or so months with some of his comments and stuff. So let's try and shy away from that one. But it looks like he's going to Everton anyway. But definitely one to watch. And like you said, Dave, it feels like it's all coming just a little bit too late, because if Dendoncker does go, you have to bring in a replacement, don't you?
Yeah. Well, we spoke about it earlier. Who we talking about? Kudus as well, Mohammed Kudus. If you someone like that, yeah, you could be a replacement. I think he's still fairly light in your holding midfield position, and I think that's possibly one of the reasons in regards to a centre back. I know people say we've got enough depth. even if Willy Bolly goes and Wolves don't sign a centre back, someone like Dendoncker as a worst case scenario could probably slot into that back four anyway. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think this is unlikely, probably the most unlikely out of all the transfers we talk about today. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, more unlikely than Ben Yedder to Wolves, or
same level.
I know that Bruno likes us because he's a tall lad, and Bruno said a couple of times these kind of profiles of players you need in the team for when defending set pieces. I know he's mentioned that when talking about substitutions, but moving on to a penultimate rumour, Dave, and it's one that broke, I believe, at the start of the week, and by David Ornstein of The Athletic, who's pretty bang on for Arsenal news, that Wolves, that Arsenal are interested in signing Pedro Neto this summer. I know that you've discussed it on our transfer videos since, but the freshest update is that Wolves have absolutely no intention of selling Pedro Neto this summer, and that's according to O Jogo in Portugal. The door is closed for his departure and expected to be available for Bruno Lage's squad for the coming season. Good news for Wolves, even it is Wolves fans, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, but I think it's a good stance to take. We're not in a position to sell, or at least we don't need to sell. We can pretty much demand what we want for him. There's no point in us bending over for these top clubs. That's where Wolves want to be aiming to be. So same with the Jota deal. I know people were disappointed with at least how we structured that deal, which in hindsight I completely agree with. And it's a difficult window now. The last week of the window, you cannot be selling a key player like that unless you're getting a mad amount of money for him. So I think Wolves' valuation as it stands is probably fair at about £50 million. But I think we all know with a solid season under his belt, an injury-free season under his belt, this time next year, you could easily be adding £15-20 million onto that value.
Yeah, and Wolves are in a really strong position, not to necessarily keep hold of the player, but to maximise the revenue that they get from this sale. He's still a young lad. His deal runs until 2027. He is an Arsenal fan, but it's understood that he's still really happy at Wolves.
Is he an Arsenal fan?
Because he grew up watching
Arsenal. But I watched that. The video people have got that from is the one when you got Moose talking to
Moose from TalkSport,
and asked him who his favourite English team was, and he took ages to answer. And he goes, Arsenal. But like if someone said, who's your favourite Spanish team? And I say, I liked Barcelona. It don't mean I'm a Barcelona fan.
MSN News will be tweeting Dave as a party releases. Reveals all.
Real club. Yeah.
Moving to talking Barcelona.
He likes Barca, but I mean, likes Arsenal, sorry. But yeah, I like Porto. I like Sporting. I mean, I'm a Sporting fan, so.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know
that's my take on anyway.
Arsenal fans are lapping it up. They think that Wolves are going to accept a bid of £25 to £30 million, which is
apparently he's going to join because he went on the Arsenal tour 4 years ago with his girlfriend as well.
Strange bunch, aren't they? We've both had it this week where it's one of our tweets has been retweeted, and like one of mine's got 1,800 likes. It's just about Neto being on the bench. As a fan base, they're like, it's ridiculous. It's sheer size of them. It's quite overwhelming at times, but Wolves are in a strong position if they are going to sell. But this late in the window, with Arsenal not valuing Neto anywhere near what Wolves value him, Dave, it looks unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I said 2 days ago, I think the likelihood of it happening would be 3 out of 10. I'd probably say it's down to 2 out of 10 now. There you go.
Wonderful, and that's what we want to hear because. He's a tremendous talent. He still needs to refine his game a bit more in line with what Bruno wants to do, but nonetheless, still a really good footballer with a bright future. And we need to keep hold of these kind of players. Our final rumour, Dave, and in your case, we've saved the best till last, is that Leeds United will reportedly target Wolves forward Hwang Hee-Chan if Dan James leaves Ellen Road to join Tottenham this summer, and that's according to Alan Nixon. However, other clubs are aware of Hwang's possible availability. More news has broken today to suggest that these links are solid, and Hwang looks like he would like to reunite with his former coach at Salzburg and at Leipzig, Jesse Marsch. Dave, I know you're not Hwang's biggest fan, but are you happy to let him go, considering we need more players in?
I'm happy to let him go, especially for the fee that's been spoken about. It's a weird one. But I was spoke to someone a few months ago that thought Leeds had an interest in him anyway. I'm sure I mentioned it on one of the podcasts. I can't remember specifically which one. But yeah, it's come out now. Again, it's a little bit late for me. But if you're making over £10 million profit, because the rumored fee that Wolves want is about £25 million, you gotta take it regardless. I think if you're keeping Adama Traore as well, the wide areas, it's not the end of the world. You could possibly do with one more there, but I think it's good enough to, see you through till the January window. But it'll be interesting. Jesse Marsh spoke about it today and said that they don't quite have the funds to be able to afford that at the moment, which probably means, they would need a sale to facilitate it. But at the same time, Jesse Marsh isn't exactly going to say, yeah, we're signing him, or yeah, we've got enough money for him.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that other clubs are interested, maybe, it could hot up till the end of the window. It'll be interesting to see what Wolves do on this front. Lage has obviously backed him quite a lot, especially last season. He's been huge to the club, market, corporately and so on.
Commercially, yeah.
But as a footballer, no, he's not for me, unfortunately.
I don't mind him. I think he would have had a better season if he was to stay.
I think his injury killed him a little bit last year as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember the first few games when we were saying when he's between the width of the goal, he looks like scoring every single time. And he had that injury, and he never quite looked the same player. And he's one of those players that fans definitely scapegoat, which I think is a little bit unfair. But you've seen when this rumor broke, people were saying like absolutely get rid of him. So I think the general consensus is they would let him go.
Yeah, but then I know there was some people joking with me, but obviously people saw the hoo-ha with me on social media when I posted the video of him missing the penalty, which for what it's worth, I actually thought he was okay against Preston. But I thought the penalty was dreadful. And I posted that, and apparently I was posting him in a negative light. But these are the same people that would slag off Fabio Silva for the last 2 years or use Leander Dendoncker as a scapegoat. But as soon as I say one bad thing about a player, people jump on it and go ballistic. So, we're all football fans. We all support Wolves, but we all watch the game in different ways. I might rate Dendoncker, you might not. I don't rate Hwang, and you might. It's just how we read the game, isn't it?
He finished.
That wasn't a go at you, Matt, by the way. That was a go at some Chiefs.
I feel like I'm out of the right dressing down.
No, not you. Was I 2 years ago with Nuno? You did like him, I did. It's just football.
That was extreme, though, man. You thought I'd have said something really, really bad, but it's football fans are passionate, aren't they? For most football fans, it's a matter of life or death. So people do think emotionally, but I agree, mate. I don't think you said anything bad. He just put video up of the penalty. But yeah, what's the fee that's been bandied around for this, mate? Is it £20 million?
Apparently, Wolves are looking for 25.
Oh God! Okay.
Yeah, but I think if you get in between, I think we signed him for 14. If you get anywhere between 20, meeting halfway between sort of 19 to 21 million, I think if you're making 4 or 5 million profit on him, I think you take it personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to him going if they, for example, were to bring in something like Dario Osorio, who we've been linked with for the whole window.
Yeah, a player that's going to come in and not necessarily expect to start, but still almost a little bit like the Chiquinho mold. Yeah, where he's happy to fight for his place. I agree.
And I think Osorio could be that player if Hwang goes. I think that'd be a really shrewd signing, but it's going to be a really busy week, isn't it, Dave? I know, like I said, we'll be doing a deadline day stream on Thursday, probably from around 7 or 8 o'clock. We'll have some special guests on there.
And maybe do one of these, but as a roundup video this time next week, possibly. We'll see.
And I know that once we finalise all our signings, we'll be sitting down again with Dan Butler for him to take us through Wolves' recruitment, whether it will be a success and his thoughts and feelings. But Dave, we've ran through a lot there. Where can people find you should they wish to?
Yeah, so it's Dave as a party on Twitter, DAVEAZZOPARDI. Thank you, Matt.
M Cooper Writes on Twitter, Matt Cooper Bites on YouTube. We are Talking Wolves across all your social media platforms. But let us know, guys, what you think about these rumours. Can you see some of them happening? There's any other players that we haven't mentioned who you'd like Wolves to sign? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new. And until next time, take care and enjoy your bank holiday weekend.